A hushed silence fell over the opulent ballroom as the well-heeled guests sipped champagne and exchanged knowing glances. Luxurious chandeliers sparkled above like distant constellations, illuminating every polished marble inch of the grand hall. Tall centerpieces of fresh orchids danced in the soft breeze of the air conditioning. It was the annual Hawkins Foundation Charity Gala, a coveted invitation among the country's elite. Little did anyone suspect that this glittering event would become the stage for a shocking revelation. A reclusive millionaire haunted by his past would come face to face with a secret he never imagined the triplets he'd left behind years ago. In the heart of San Francisco's upscale Pacific Heights, an imposing mansion stood proudly behind wrought-iron gates. This lavish home belonged to Leonardo Leo Rutherford, a self-made millionaire who had climbed the economic ladder with relentless ambition. Renowned for his shrewd investments in technology startups, Leo was a man of sharp intellect, unwavering determination, and as rumor had it, a hidden wound that never quite healed. Leo's story began in a place far removed from the marble floors and glittering parties he now frequented. Born in a modest neighborhood in Sacramento, he grew up in a cramped two-bedroom home with his parents and 3 siblings. Money was always scarce. Yet the scarcity fueled Leo's hunger for success. He was a straight-A student running after every scholarship-winning math competitions and essay contests. He saw education and opportunity as the key to escaping poverty. His name soon appeared on the lists of top universities, and eventually he attended Stanford on a full-ride scholarship, studying finance and business management. That was where the foundation of his future empire was laid. But before Stanford, there was someone else in Leo's life. Someone who shared his dreams, or at least tried. Laura Manning came from a middle-class background, also from Sacramento, and she and Leo had been high school sweethearts. They were inseparable, supporting each other through thick and thin. Where Leo was ambitious and strategic, Laura was kind-hearted, creative, and fiercely loyal. They balanced each other out. Their teen romance had ups and downs like any other, but it survived through arguments and financial strains, forging a bond that felt at the time unbreakable. When Leo received his scholarship to Stanford, Laura cheered him on. Although she couldn't afford to attend the same university, she planned to work locally, support them financially, and eventually transfer to a nearby college. Everything seemed so simple in theory. Yet once faced with the reality of juggling separate lives, distance, and new temptations, the foundation of their relationship began to crack. Despite that, Leo and Laura defied the odds briefly. During Leo's sophomore year, they had a spontaneous courthouse wedding. It was intimate, impulsive, and tinged with idealism. They dreamed of conquering the world together, Leo in finance, Laura in creative writing or perhaps marketing. But as the months wore on, Leo's hunger for more, a better life, wealth recognition, became all-consuming. He spent nights buried in textbooks, weekends at networking events, and summers interning at top firms. Laura, meanwhile, found her dreams increasingly overshadowed by Leo's relentless pursuit. She took on administrative work at a local library to make ends meet, while her husband soared through the ranks of academia. The disconnect grew. Arguments erupted. Love letters that once warmed their hearts grew less frequent and eventually stopped altogether. Laura felt neglected. Leo felt misunderstood. Each time they tried to rekindle the spark, new responsibilities or new temptations arose. Ultimately, after another explosive argument about money and fidelity, they separated. Laura returned to Sacramento, leaving behind only a short note. "I'm done losing myself. I wish you well, Leo." In the frenzy of his rising career, Leo never looked back, at least not outwardly. Their divorce was finalized quietly, almost like an afterthought. Soon after graduation, Leo landed a lucrative job at a venture capital firm, then launched a tech startup fund that skyrocketed. Over the years, his fortune swelled, as did his public image. A philanthropic side emerged, perhaps driven by guilt or the memory of the struggles of his youth. Through the Rutherford Foundation, he donated millions to children's education and youth outreach programs. He made appearances at high-profile events, shaking hands with people like Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey at charity gatherings. Society saw him as a suave, generous mogul. But in the sanctuary of his lonely mansion, old memories would sometimes resurface. Late at night, he would glance at the single photograph from his courthouse wedding, a moment frozen in time, where he and Laura grinned with unwavering hope. He told himself it was a closed chapter, that their parting had been for the best. Unbeknownst to him, life had taken a shocking turn for Laura, and the consequences of that heartbreak would one day come crashing into his perfectly curated life, tripled. After Laura left Leo in a swirl of tears and unspoken resentment, she returned to her parents' home in Sacramento. It wasn't a triumphant homecoming. She felt like a failure, overshadowed by her own broken dreams. But heartbreak has a way of reshaping people. One day, as she was reorganizing her childhood room, she discovered she was pregnant. And she soon learned, carrying not one but 3 babies. The shock was monumental. Friends and family gasped, then scrambled to offer help, but no one quite knew what to do with the magnitude of the situation. Laura, too, was overwhelmed. She had lost her husband, had no stable job, and was bracing herself for the sudden burden of single motherhood times 3. Yet beneath her anxieties lay a fierce sense of resolve, something she discovered she had in spades. If she couldn't rely on Leo, she would rely on herself. Her parents, Robert and Cynthia Manning, welcomed her with open arms, despite their own financial constraints. Her father was a retired postal worker, her mother a secretary at a local law firm. They had a modest house in a quiet neighborhood with enough room to set up a makeshift nursery. Each ultrasound appointment brought a combination of dread and excitement. The doctors warned her of the dangers and complexities of carrying triplets from preterm labor to potential complications. Still, Laura persevered, leaning on a small circle of supportive friends. Meanwhile, she debated whether to reach out to Leo. She wrote 6 emails, but never sent them. She composed a letter, sealed it, and placed it in a drawer. Even in her heartbreak and anger, she realized Leo deserved to know. But every time she mustered the courage to mail that letter or dial his number, she heard rumors that he was thriving, building an empire, even rumored to be dating. Uncertain if her voice would even register amid the noise of his newfound success, she remained silent. She convinced herself that she didn't need Leo's help. A few years passed, and the triplets Lila Logan and Leanne came into the world full of life and personality. From the start, they mirrored both their parents. Lila was the introspective one, dark-eyed and perceptive like her mother. Logan was analytical, reminiscent of Leo's mind for strategy. Leanne was the free spirit, an artist at heart. They filled Laura's tiny world with raucous laughter and endless chaos. However, financial realities soon set in. Diapers formula, medical bills, the constant need for new clothes, it all stacked up alarmingly fast. Laura took a job as a copywriter at a local marketing firm, which offered flexible hours but never quite paid enough. To supplement, She began freelancing at night, writing blog articles for businesses online. Sleep was a luxury. Her parents helped, but they too were nearing retirement with limited funds. The strain took a toll. Occasionally she'd return home exhausted, greeted by 3 wailing babies in cribs, the smell of dinner half-cooked, and her parents frantically trying to keep order. Still, she refused to regret her choices. There was beauty in her children's eyes, hope in their little laughs when she tickled their bellies. They were her solace, her impetus to keep going. As the triplets grew older, they inherited their mother's empathy. They saw her returning from work, shoulders slumped. They'd crawl into her lap, smother her in hugs and say, "We love you, Mummy." Sometimes the warmth of those tiny arms made Laura wonder what kind of father they might have had if life had turned out differently. When the triplets turned 5, Laura finally decided to take them to a local genealogical fair out of curiosity. She'd always been intrigued by her own ancestry, but the real reason was simpler. She wanted them to understand where they came from. She also realized that one day, questions about their father would become unavoidable. She had prepared a story, one that removed bitterness, but emphasized that sometimes people grow in different directions. She saved old photographs of Leo in a shoebox, planning to share them when they were old enough. What she couldn't foresee was that fate would deliver an unexpected opportunity, one that would bring all her hopes and fears together at a single glittering event, the Hawkins Foundation Charity Gala. A place where the philanthropic, the wealthy, and the curious mingled under one star-studded roof. Little did she know the triplets would be directly involved, unwittingly setting the stage for the biggest revelation of her life and of Leo's. While Laura grappled with the realities of single motherhood, Leo soared through the stratosphere of wealth. His early investments in emerging tech markets paid off exponentially. He bought luxury properties in New York, Los Angeles, and even a ski chalet in Aspen. Meanwhile, he nurtured political connections to secure government grants for philanthropic initiatives, launching the Rutherford Foundation to much public fanfare. Yet behind the facade of perfect success, cracks appeared in Leo's personal life. His work schedule consumed him. He rarely slept more than 5 hours, often hopped between time zones, and spent his days in glass-walled offices negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. He had little time for genuine friendships. He did, however, find time for short-lived relationships, typically with socialites or up-and-coming actresses, dazzled by his generosity. There was Vanessa Clark, an art gallery owner from Manhattan, Maria Ferreira, a celebrity chef from Chicago. None of these relationships lasted more than a year. Commitment frightened him, or so he told himself. He occasionally felt an unspoken emptiness, particularly around the holidays, when he saw others enjoying family gatherings. He would bury that emotion by writing enormous donation checks or orchestrating large-scale philanthropic events. His logic was simple. He'd use his success to help others, an act that would also soothe his guilt for having left certain people behind. Subconsciously, he might have been thinking of Laura, though he never acknowledged it. One evening, as he prepared for a keynote speech at a tech summit, he saw on social media a friend of Laura's from high school, Marjorie Wood. Marjorie had posted a photo from a local community event. As he skimmed the images, he spotted a woman that looked strikingly like Laura, but older, more mature, and radiant in her own way. She was flanked by 3 children who each bore a slight resemblance to him. The caption read, "Family Day is the best day." Leo felt his heart lurch. Was that truly Laura? And who were those kids? He felt a strange pang in his chest. Something between longing and regret. He quickly shut his phone, dismissing it as mere curiosity. He had a speech to deliver, corporate deals to finalize. Life marched forward, no time for backward glances. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating about Leo's potential run for a political office. Some said he had Senate ambitions, while others speculated he would become a major power broker behind the scenes. His philanthropic work made headlines, especially when he was named as a top donor to prestigious non-profits. One such non-profit was the Hawkins Foundation, run by the formidable Evelyn Hawkins, a well-connected socialite from an old money family in San Francisco. Evelyn was known for throwing lavish galas to raise funds for children's education and global health initiatives. She invited Leo to be her keynote speaker at the upcoming Hawkins Foundation Charity Gala, a star-studded event that promised to outdo any prior year. Leo gladly accepted. It was another chance to burnish his public image and network with the richest of the rich. Shortly after, he began dating Claire Dennison, an up-and-coming fashion designer from Los Angeles. She was stunning, ambitious, and eager to expand her brand. They appeared at red carpet events, their photos splashed across tabloids as a new power couple. Claire loved the limelight and was equally captivated by the opulence of Leo's lifestyle. Leo, on the other hand, found in Claire a temporary refuge from his lingering insecurities. They made a glamorous pair, but beneath that veneer, they knew little about each other's core values or vulnerabilities. As the Hawkins Gala approached, Claire fussed over her gown, selecting a custom creation from her newest line. Leo nodded politely at her fashion choices, ensuring the Rutherford Foundation staff prepared a hefty donation for the event. His mind churned over the speech he'd deliver and what new connections he'd forge. Unbeknownst to him, fate was busy weaving a different plan, one that would bring him face to face with the ghosts of his past and 3 living reminders of the life he'd walked away from. In Sacramento, Laura's world revolved around the Triplets. Lila, Logan, and Leanne were now teenagers, each with a blossoming personality. Lila had a knack for volunteer work and was deeply involved in local charity drives, especially those linked to children's literacy. Logan showed a keen interest in technology. He tinkered with computers, coding small programs. Leanne gravitated toward the arts, be it painting, drawing, or designing crafts. Laura marveled at how their individual strengths formed a harmonious triad when they supported each other. One chilly November afternoon, Laura received a letter from the Hawkins Foundation. She recognized the name. It was a prominent non-profit, often in the news for its lavish fundraising galas. To her astonishment, the letter was an invitation to attend the upcoming annual charity event in San Francisco. Attached was a personal note from Evelyn Hawkins herself, explaining that Laura's local non-profit group, Sacramento Future Leaders, had recently caught the foundation's attention. Laura was known for rallying volunteers, especially teenagers, to mentor younger kids from low-income families. She had started the program after noticing Lila's passion for helping others. Evelyn's note expressed how impressed she was with the success of Sacramento Future Leaders in improving literacy rates and providing after-school programs. She wanted Laura's group to be honored at the gala, possibly receiving a grant to expand their efforts. Confusion swirled in Laura's mind. How had they landed on Evelyn's radar? Could it be that some philanthropic directory or local press mention had done the trick? Regardless, it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The chance to secure a substantial grant network with influential donors and share her non-profit's mission was invaluable. Naturally, the Triplets were elated, especially Lila. "Imagine all the kids we can help if we get a big grant." "Mom," she exclaimed. Logan was equally excited, but more for the prospect of rubbing shoulders with top-tech innovators. Leanne, meanwhile, fantasized about painting an artistic piece to donate for auction, thus leaving an impression on potential art patrons. There was only one concern: the event required formal attire, something the Manning household wasn't exactly prepared for. Ball gowns, tuxedos, high heels. It all sounded excessive to Laura. She didn't have the funds to splurge on designer labels, but as word spread, local boutiques offered to sponsor the family's attire in exchange for a mention in any press coverage. It was a win-win scenario. A quiet worry knotted Laura's stomach. There was a strong likelihood that high-profile donors like Leo Rutherford would be in attendance. Over the years, she'd seen his name pop up in philanthropic circles and on the news. Though it had been more than a decade since she last saw him in person, the possibility of a sudden encounter was real. Should she warn the kids? Tell them about their father? Or would the night unfold quietly, overshadowed by the grandiosity of the event? After much deliberation, Laura decided not to instill any anxiety in them. There was a chance Leo might not even show up, and she refused to let her past overshadow the kids' rightful excitement. She secretly hoped fate would spare her any awkward confrontation. Little did she know the wheels were already in motion. The Hawkins Foundation had personally invited Leo Rutherford as a VIP guest and keynote speaker, ensuring they announced his attendance far and wide. All that remained was for that fateful night to arrive, a night that would entangle the family's past, present, and future in one inextricable knot. The grand ballroom of the Hawkins Foundation was an architectural masterpiece. Towering marble columns lined the entrance, each draped in shimmering gold fabric. A plush red carpet stretched from the foyer to the stage, where a polished wooden podium awaited the evening speakers. Opulent chandeliers dangled overhead, each crystal facet scattering light like tiny galaxies. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, and waitstaff moved gracefully among the guests, offering trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Laura arrived with the triplets, each of them dressed in donated finery. Lila wore a simple yet elegant navy blue gown that accentuated her graceful movements. Logan, more uncomfortable in formal wear, tugged at his rented tuxedo's collar, but managed to look dapper. Leanne dazzled in a pastel pink dress, her arms cradling a small canvas painting she had decided to donate for auction. Laura herself donned a floor-length emerald gown that gently hugged her figure, a far cry from the more subdued clothing she usually wore. A local hairdresser had volunteered to style her hair in a loose updo, giving her an air of quiet sophistication. Evelyn Hawkins greeted them with open arms. She was a tall woman in her mid-50s, her hair a silver blonde swept into a classic chignon. Dressed in a flowing ivory gown, she exuded a practiced elegance. Laura Manning. "It's an honor to finally meet you," she said, flashing a warm smile. Evelyn introduced the triplets to various board members, praising the Sacramento Future Leaders program. Cameras flashed as local media captured their arrival, eager for human interest stories among the standard parade of wealthy philanthropists. At the same moment, Leo Rutherford stepped out of a black limousine at the Gala's private entrance. He wore a sleek, custom-tailored suit that seemed to catch the light with every step. By his side was Claire Dennison, radiant in a sparkling, champagne-colored gown. Claire clasped Leo's arm possessively, soaking up the attention of photographers. They were ushered in through a separate hallway, greeted by staff who whisked them directly to the VIP lounge. There, Leo made small talk with other high-profile donors, sipping aged scotch and flashing his signature charismatic smile. The evening was divided into sections, a cocktail reception followed by dinner speeches, and finally a live auction of items and experiences donated for the cause. While Laura and the triplets mingled with other guests, Leo entered the main ballroom to find his assigned table near the stage, marked with his name in gilded lettering. He noticed Evelyn Hawkins approaching him, her face lighting up when their eyes met. "Leo, my dear, so glad you could join us," she said in her cultured voice. They exchanged pleasantries before Evelyn hinted at the presence of a remarkable new program from Sacramento. They're a small outfit, truly grassroots, but achieving great things. "Perhaps you should meet them later," she suggested. Leo merely nodded, scanning the room for potential networking targets. He had no inkling that the mention of this small outfit was intimately tied to his past. Meanwhile, the triplets found themselves awestruck by the grandeur of the event. Logan's eyes kept gravitating towards the stage, where an array of tech moguls and CEOs were seated. Lila admired the philanthropic spirit that seemed to permeate the crowd. She was especially impressed by the donation boards that lined the edges of the ballroom, highlighting projects in impoverished regions. Leanne, for her part, was too excited about her painting's auction slot to notice much else. Laura, however, felt a gnawing dread that intensified with every passing minute. She had spotted a large sign near the entrance listing the Gala's star attendees, and of course Leo's name was near the top. Each time the crowd shifted, she braced herself for a possible run-in. Yet with so many guests, politicians, celebrities, tech innovators, she could only wait and see if the dreaded or miraculous moment would arrive. After the guests found their seats at round tables draped with crisp white linens, servers paraded in, carrying platters of gourmet dishes. Sparkling silverware and fine china clinked softly against the hum of polite conversation. Laura and the triplets were seated toward the middle of the ballroom, sharing the table with other non-profit leaders. Between bites of salmon en croûte, they engaged in polite conversation with donors curious about Sacramento future leaders. Laura, demure yet passionate, explained their mission of mentoring kids and connecting them with opportunities for growth. Next to her, Lila jumped in with anecdotes of reading programs, while Logan pitched the idea of adding basic coding workshops. Leanne mostly listened occasionally, chiming in with creative ideas. At the VIP table closer to the stage, Leo Rutherford sat flanked by Claire on one side and an influential senator on the other. The senator was discussing upcoming legislative reforms that might affect philanthropic tax breaks, a topic that piqued Leo's interest. He responded with practiced eloquence, nodding intently, but his gaze periodically wandered around the ballroom, as if drawn by an invisible magnetic force. Something was nagging at him, a faint stirring at the back of his mind. He couldn't shake off the feeling that someone familiar was nearby. Claire, ever attuned to social status, was busy flirting with the idea of dressing the senator's wife for upcoming political events. She gently patted Leo's hand to regain his focus. Oblivious, he offered a polite smile and returned his attention to the senator, though that tugging feeling remained. When dinner concluded, Evelyn Hawkins ascended the stage to deliver the opening remarks. She welcomed the assembled guests, thanked the major sponsors among them, the Rutherford Foundation, and spoke about the projects the Hawkins Foundation aimed to support. Her words brimmed with gratitude and aspiration. Then, with a flourish, she introduced Leo Rutherford as the evening's keynote speaker. Thunderous applause filled the ballroom as Leo made his way to the stage. Cameras flashed, capturing his poised stride. Claire gazed at him with pride, while the senator clapped politely. Meanwhile, Laura felt the blood drain from her face. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. The triplets looked at her puzzled, Standing at the podium, Leo exuded confidence, though a swirl of adrenaline coursed through him. He began by narrating his humble beginnings in Sacramento, how he'd ascended the ranks of finance with sheer determination. As he spoke, the triplets exchanged curious glances, absorbing every word. The mention of Sacramento lit sparks of familiarity in their eyes. Leo then lauded the spirit of giving, emphasizing how his philanthropic endeavors tried to give children the leg up he never had. His words resonated deeply with the triplets. Something about him, his voice, his mannerisms, struck a chord. Lila blinked in confusion. Logan leaned forward, and Leanne's eyes flicked to her mother. Laura avoided their questioning gazes, her heart pounding. As Leo scanned the room during his speech, his eyes drifted over hundreds of expectant faces. Then he saw her just for a fleeting moment. Laura Manning, his ex-wife, the one woman who had captured his young, idealistic heart. He nearly fumbled over his next line. Time seemed to warp the background noise, dropping away, replaced by the echo of his own heartbeat. He forced himself to look away, but the shock was unmistakable. Laura is here, closing his speech with a practiced flourish. Leo stepped off the podium to roaring applause, handing the microphone back to Evelyn. Instinctively, his eyes sought Laura's table again, drawn by a magnetic curiosity. She was looking down as though hoping to remain invisible. But there was no undoing that split second of recognition. It was like seeing a ghost. Claire hurried up to congratulate him, hooking her arm through his. "That was amazing," she purred. He responded with a distracted nod. His mind was already reeling, bombarded by a tumult of memories. Sacramento, cramped apartments, courthouse weddings, painful fights. And that lingering question, what is she doing here? As the live auction portion began, servers glided around with silver coffee pots and dessert trays. Leo accepted a cup of black coffee, but didn't touch it. He was on autopilot, eyes flickering again and again toward Laura's table. She was engaged in conversation with her tablemates, or maybe only pretending to, her face partially obscured. Beside her sat 3 striking teenagers who looked vaguely familiar. Recognition tugged at his subconscious, but he couldn't place it yet. Little did he know the most earth-shaking reveal of the evening was yet to come when the stage lights shifted from him to the triplets, illuminating secrets that had lain buried for over a decade. Amid the swirl of anticipation for the live auction, a hush fell over the guests as Evelyn Hawkins readied a clipboard of featured items. Trips to exotic locales, luxury spa retreats, a chance to dine with celebrities, typical fare for high-end galas. Then Evelyn motioned to an easel that had been set up near the stage. Up next, we have a very special piece of art from a young, promising talent. Evelyn announced, shining a spotlight on Leanne Manning, who stood trembling slightly with excitement and nerves. Her painting depicted a sunset over a bustling city skyline, symbolizing hope for youth in metropolitan areas. The artist is Ms. Leanne Manning, one of the triplets from the Sacramento Future Leaders program. An intrigued murmur rippled through the crowd. Laura gave Leanne a supportive squeeze on the hand as she and the other 2 siblings made their way to the stage. The painting radiated vibrant colors, each brushstroke painstakingly crafted with the care of a young soul eager to express herself. Under the spotlight, Leanne introduced herself softly, thanking Evelyn for the opportunity and explaining the painting's inspiration. "I wanted to capture the feeling that no matter how busy or dark life can get in the city, there's always a burst of color, a sunrise or sunset, reminding us that every day is a new chance." Lila and Logan stood by her side, nodding in agreement. The audience applauded warmly at their confidence and the sincerity behind their project's mission. From his seat, Leo felt a sudden jolt, as if the strings of time had converged all at once. The shape of Logan's face, the tilt of Lila's chin, the soulful eyes of Leanne each triggered a flash of memory from his youth with Laura. He couldn't deny the uncanny resemblance. It felt as though he was gazing at reflections of his own genetic legacy. Claire noticed the shift in Leo's demeanor. She followed his line of sight to the stage. "Something wrong?" she asked, arching a curious eyebrow. He shook his head, swallowing hard. "No." "Nothing," he replied, though his voice betrayed him. His heart thundered in his chest. Evelyn started the bidding for Leanne's painting. Hands shot up each new bid, pushing the price higher. Some guests appreciated the philanthropic angle. Others genuinely admired the art. Through it all, the triplets maintained their composure, though Leanne's cheeks glowed pink with excitement. Eventually, the painting sold for a remarkable amount, drawing the triplets into a group hug under the bright lights. When they returned to their seats, Laura enveloped them in a proud embrace. She had tears in her eyes, tears of pride, relief, and perhaps a swirl of fear, knowing that Leo might soon put two and two together. For his part, Leo was grappling with swirling thoughts. He felt a compulsion to speak with Laura immediately, if only to confirm the truth. But his mind was paralyzed by questions. When did it happen? Why didn't she tell me? Is it even possible? After the auction concluded, the mingling resumed. Jazz music drifted through the speakers, and the crowd dispersed into small clusters. A sense of tension thrummed in the air for Laura. She tried to guide the triplets away, hoping to leave early and avoid any confrontation. But they found themselves cornered by well-wishers, donors, and non-profit leaders wanting to congratulate them. She watched anxiously as the sea of guests parted, revealing Leo Rutherford approaching with measured steps. The moment she had dreaded for years was finally here. He stopped a few feet away from Laura, his gaze flicking from her to the triplets. The siblings looked at each other, unsure why this famous mogul was staring at them with such intensity. Laura inhaled sharply, searching for composure. She introduced herself quietly. "Leo, it's been a long time." Leo nodded at a loss for words. Then his eyes settled on the kids. His kids, though he needed confirmation. You did a wonderful job tonight," he said, his voice sounding strangely husky. The triplets murmured polite thank yous, oblivious to the undercurrent in their parents' expressions. Laura's face looked taut, stuck in a mixture of apprehension and quiet strength. Lila, the most perceptive, picked up on something in Leo's eyes, a flicker of recognition that sent her own heart pounding. "Mr. Rutherford, do you know our mum?" she asked softly, her curiosity getting the better of her. The question hung in the air like a precarious chandelier. Laura hesitated. She'd thought about this scenario countless times. Perhaps she had always imagined a private, controlled moment, an explanation carefully delivered to spare the kids any heartbreak. Instead, they now stood in a crowded ballroom under glittering chandeliers with cameras and onlookers all around, as the father they never knew came face to face with them. Before she could say anything, Leo answered, "Yes, we used to be very close." The statement brimmed with unspoken meaning, the kind that only Laura truly understood. The triplets glanced at their mother, eyes wide. Laura took a shaky breath, bracing herself for the next tidal wave of revelations. Laura's mind whirled, searching for the right words, but finding none. She glanced at the teenagers, each reflecting a swirl of curiosity, confusion, and maybe anticipation. Sensing the enormity of the moment, Evelyn Hawkins discreetly asked the surrounding guests to give them some space. With a gentle wave, the crowd dispersed, leaving Laura, Leo, and the triplets in a tense huddle near the edge of the ballroom. Claire Dennison lingered a few feet behind Leo, her face a tableau of puzzled concern. She watched as Leo's usually unflappable composure cracked. He struggled for breath, and for a moment, an anxious hush gripped them all. Finally, Leo turned to Laura. "We need to talk," he said, his voice quiet, but laced with urgency. Laura nodded, and in unspoken agreement, they moved to a nearby alcove, an ornate corner lined with gold-framed mirrors and plush velvet seats. The triplets followed, hearts hammering in their chests. Claire, feeling shut out, hovered uncertainly before deciding to stand at a distance close enough to watch but not to intrude. Leo's gaze swept over the three teenagers. He saw in their faces echoes of his own younger self and glimpses of Laura's gentle eyes. There's no denying it. He thought a potent mixture of awe and fear surging through him. "Are they—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Laura stepped forward, trembling despite trying to appear strong. "Yes," she admitted. "They're ours." The air crackled with the weight of a decade-long secret laid bare. Lila Logan and Leanne stared at Laura, then at Leo, their minds spinning in disbelief. Their father, the father they had never met, stood right in front of them. Emotions warred in their faces. Awe, confusion, betrayal that they hadn't known sooner. Curiosity, and beneath it all, a faint spark of hope. "Why?" The word escaped Logan's lips, directed toward both parents. His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us?" Laura swallowed hard. She had rehearsed this moment in her head so many times, but could never find the perfect explanation. I made a decision to raise you on my own. Your father and I had parted ways, and it was complicated." Leo raked a hand through his hair, guilt knotting his stomach. "I didn't know," he said earnestly, locking eyes with the triplets. I never knew you existed. Your mother never told me." Lila's expression turned to Laura. "Is that true?" she asked, her voice tinged with accusation. Laura's eyes brimmed with tears. "Yes, sweetheart. It's true. I didn't know how to tell him. We were in the middle of our divorce, and by the time I realized I was pregnant, things were too broken. And I was afraid he'd be too busy, that maybe he wouldn't care." Maybe I was wrong," she murmured. Her words wavered with remorse. Leo gently touched Laura's shoulder. It was the first physical contact they'd had in years. "You should have given me a chance to be there," he said quietly, though his voice carried raw emotion. Anger, regret, longing, an endless spectrum that threatened to overwhelm him. The triplets exchanged glances, tears welling in their eyes. Their entire identity had just shifted. They yearned for answers, yet were uncertain if they wanted them all at once. Finally, Leanne spoke, her artistic soul straining to articulate her swirling emotions. "So you're our father?" she asked, her voice trembling. Leo nodded unsteady. Silence enveloped them, so heavy it could be felt. Claire at a distance frowned, catching on to the gravity of what was happening. She stepped closer, her face etched with concern. "Leo, what is going on?" she whispered urgently. He gave her a sidelong glance. "Not now, Claire," he murmured. "I need a moment with my children." The words felt foreign on his tongue, but also shockingly right. Evelyn Hawkins, ever the poised host, discreetly approached. Noticing the emotional upheaval, she addressed Laura and Leo with genuine concern. "Maybe you'd like to step into a private lounge. The night is still young, and we have additional performances, but I can arrange some privacy for your family." Family? The term lodged in Leo's mind like a splinter. Family. He had a family he never knew existed. Laura agreed to Evelyn's suggestion with a nod. They gathered the triplets, now numb with revelations, and followed Evelyn's discreet guidance to a smaller VIP lounge off the main hall. Claire, uncertain of her place, trailed awkwardly behind. As they entered the room, the door closing softly behind them, they left the glitter and chatter of the gala behind. In this quieter space, the magnitude of the moment intensified. They were no longer performing for a crowd. It was just them, two ex-spouses, forced to confront a stolen past, and three teenagers grappling with the most significant news of their lives. All at the biggest charity gala in the city, under the watchful eyes of the wealthy elite. Once inside the VIP lounge, richly furnished with leather couches, glass coffee tables, and modern art lining the walls, Laura, Leo, and the triplets found seats in an uncertain circle. Claire hovered near the door, feeling excluded but also protective of Leo. The room felt hot, the tension suffocating. Logan, always the pragmatic one, wiped his tears roughly and cleared his throat. How do we even start this conversation?" His voice quivered, but he forged ahead anyway. "We have a father we never knew. You're him. And now we're just supposed to figure out what that means." Leo's chest tightened. He felt a powerful urge to comfort his son, to take him in his arms. Yet he recognized that his sudden presence was jarring for these teenagers. "I don't have all the answers," he admitted shakily. "But I want to get to know you. All of you." The words hung in the air like a plea. Claire couldn't hold back any more. "Leo," she began softly, "I understand this is shocking, but are you sure? Should we do a test or something?" Her eyes darted uncertainly between him and the triplets. Laura bristled at the insinuation, but she swallowed her pride. "Yes, he's sure," she said, her tone clipped. "But if anyone needs a test to confirm, we can do that. I have no reason to lie now." She bit her lip, tears threatening to spill. Leanne, who had been conspicuously silent, finally spoke. "Mum, why didn't you tell us who our father was? You always said he left before you knew you were pregnant." "That might be true, but we deserved to know sooner." Her voice cracked with the weight of betrayal, yet she was trying not to let anger overshadow her love for her mother. Laura clasped her hands, knuckles white. "I know, and I'm sorry. I was young. I was scared. Your father and I were on such bad terms, and I thought, maybe you were all better off not knowing. I worried about how to handle shared custody. I thought he'd be too busy or worse, uninterested. I didn't want you three to be hurt if he rejected you." Leo inhaled sharply. "I never would have rejected them. But I can't say I blame you entirely," he admitted, wrestling with memories of his younger self, driven impatient at times, selfish. "Back then I was obsessed with building my career. I might have been a terrible father at that stage of my life." A hush followed. The triplets looked at Leo, unspoken questions swirling. Is he a better father now? Does he even want to be? They sensed his remorse, but trust couldn't be built in a single night. Claire tried to interject once more. "Look, I understand how complicated this is, but we're at a public event." Maybe Leo held up a hand. Claire. "Please," he said, meeting her eyes. "I need to handle this. They're my kids." The reality of that statement was still sinking in, but it felt undeniably right. She pursed her lips, unwilling to make a scene. "I'll wait outside," she muttered, stepping out with a flourish of her gown. The tension lessened slightly. Laura couldn't help a small exhale of relief. Alone together, the newly reconnected family eyed each other with a swirl of emotions. Lila rubbed her arms, trembling slightly. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice thick with uncertainty. "We can't just pretend this never happened. Do we meet up? Do we try to be a family?" Laura swallowed. "That's up to all of us. But yes, I think we owe it to ourselves to figure this out together." Leo nodded. "I want to. More than anything. I missed out on so much. I'd like to be part of your lives." His voice wavered, raw with emotion. "But only if you want that too." A flurry of thoughts crossed the triplets' minds. Anger at being kept in the dark, curiosity about Leo's world, yearning for a father's presence. Slowly, Lila scooted closer. "I want to know more," she said, her eyes glassy with tears, but not unkind. Logan gave a stiff nod, and Leanne whispered, "Me too." Clinging to a flicker of optimism, Laura felt the urge to hug her children. She reached out hesitantly, wrapping them in her arms. All three nestled against her, tears escaping in silent streams. Leo watched, a pang of envy mixing with regret. He inched closer. Cautiously, as if treading on sacred ground, he placed his hand on Lila's shoulder. She didn't pull away. In that fragile moment, the five formed a tableau of heartbreak and tenuous hope, a fractured family contemplating the possibility of mending. Outside the lounge, the Gala raged on the wealthy elite, clinking champagne glasses, oblivious to the life-altering drama unfolding behind closed doors. The rest of the Gala passed in a haze for Laura, Leo, and the triplets. They emerged from the VIP lounge eventually, each looking emotionally drained yet oddly lighter, as though they had finally let go of some long-clenched tension. Evelyn Hawkins, ever the gracious hostess, discreetly inquired if all was well. Leo assured her that everything was under control, though under control was far from how any of them felt. Leanne's painting had fetched a remarkable sum, and the applause still lingered. The Sacramento Future Leaders Program caught the eye of multiple donors, including Evelyn herself, who promised a significant grant. The triplets could have left on a triumphant note, but their minds were preoccupied with the seismic shift in their personal lives. Claire, meanwhile, had slipped away from the event to wait in the car, leaving Leo free to focus on Laura and the kids. The final hour of the gala was an odd dance, the newly reconnected family stuck together, fielding polite conversation from other guests, while exchanging meaningful glances among themselves. An unspoken agreement had formed. They would try to make something of this unexpected second chance. As the night wound down, waitstaff began clearing tables, and the band played a mellow jazz number. Laura glanced around the ballroom, feeling an odd mix of nostalgia and uncertainty. This was the same man she had married impulsively so many years ago, now standing with her children, who shared his DNA. The heavy final chord of a jazz ballad reverberated across the room, and in its echo, she allowed herself a tiny smile. They all exited together, stepping into the chilly San Francisco night. A row of sleek cars waited under the grand portico. Laura's modest sedan was among them, flanked by limousines and luxury sports cars. Leo offered to arrange a private driver for them, but Laura politely declined. The triplets seemed torn between excitement at the glamorous offer and loyalty to the comfort of their own mother's routine. Before parting ways, Leo made a tentative suggestion. "Let's meet for dinner next weekend, all of us. Somewhere casual, no big crowds. We need time to talk properly." The triplets nodded in unison like they shared one heartbeat. Laura hesitated for a moment, then relented. "Okay, that might be good," she said. They exchanged phone numbers, something they should have done years ago. Logan raised an eyebrow at how surreal it was, swapping contacts with the father he never knew, who also happened to be a wealthy, famous philanthropist. With that, the triplets piled into Laura's car. Leo stood back, watching them drive away, a swirl of gratitude and regret washing over him. Claire's limo waited for him. As he slid into the plush back seat, his mind spun with potential futures and the weight of all he'd missed. Claire eyed him warily, sensing that their relationship had just taken an irreparable blow, though she couldn't predict how it would unfold. Over the following weeks, discussions between Laura and Leo were frequent, but delicate. They arranged that dinner an evening at a quiet, family-friendly bistro in Sacramento, far from prying eyes. The triplets peppered Leo with questions about his childhood, his career, his philanthropic work. He answered earnestly, letting them see not just the polished public figure, but also the insecure boy who once lived in a cramped apartment, hungry for success. One by one, each of the triplets bonded with him in their own way. Logan sought career advice and marveled at Leo's stories of investing in cutting-edge tech. Lila gravitated toward his philanthropic ideals, volunteering with the Rutherford Foundation's local outreach programs. Leanne warmed to him more slowly, her artistic heart cautious about trusting new relationships. But eventually she showed him her sketchbook, an intimate glimpse into her world of swirling colors and sketches. He was impressed, praising her talent. Laura observed these interactions with conflicting emotions: pride for her children, relief that Leo was earnest, and a lingering sadness for the years lost. After a few meetings, Leo invited them to a day trip in San Francisco, visiting museums, strolling through waterfront parks, and sharing laughter that felt genuine. Though the friction of their past lingered, each shared experience chipped away at the barriers. Eventually, they reached a new normal. Leo began to visit Sacramento more often, and the triplets ventured to his San Francisco mansion, wide-eyed at the opulence. Over dinners and weekend outings, they uncovered each other's quirks and dreams. Leo realized that genuine fatherhood wasn't about lavish gifts or fancy vacations, but about being present. For the first time in his life, he understood that no business deal could replicate the warmth of a true family connection. Claire made her exit, deciding that the complexities of Leo's new familial obligations weren't compatible with her ambitions. She parted somewhat amicably, but the relationship had never been built on a foundation sturdy enough to withstand this upheaval. Leo barely felt the loss. He was consumed by more profound concerns, like how to be a decent dad after all these years. And Laura. She cautiously opened her heart again. Not necessarily to rekindle romance, though the spark never fully died, but to accept that Leo could be a co-parent in the children's lives. They had shared a tumultuous past, but perhaps they could forge a healthier dynamic for the sake of the triplets. Time would tell if they could be more than co-parents, but for now, the tentative peace they built was enough. Thus, on a night that began as a typical philanthropic soiree, fate played its hand, reuniting a shattered family before an unsuspecting audience. The once estranged father now found himself planning birthdays and summer vacations, while the triplets reveled in a sense of belonging they hadn't known was missing. And Laura Manning, once a single mother, braving the odds, found a measure of closure, knowing she no longer walked the path of parenthood alone. In the months and years that followed, the Manning triplets flourished. Lila's penchant for volunteer work led her to spearhead expansions of Sacramento future leaders, even traveling with the Rutherford Foundation to install reading programs in underprivileged districts. Logan's knack for technology saw him interning at one of Leo's startups, where he tackled coding challenges far beyond the scope of a typical teenager. Leanne found her artistic voice winning a county-wide art competition that brought tears of pride to both her parents. Leo, once a man defined solely by ambition and success, discovered a deeper purpose. Weekends often saw him at the Manning household, laughter echoing through the living room as the family played board games. Sometimes they simply talked, bridging the gap of lost years. Laura remained guarded in matters of the heart, but each interaction with Leo softened her stance. While they hadn't fully resolved the complexities of their past, they were forging a new bond built on mutual respect and shared love for the triplets. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were arguments about curfews, about personal boundaries, about adjusting to the presence of an affluent father in a modest neighborhood. But each disagreement ended in dialogue, a far cry from the silence that once defined Laura and Leo's separation. Slowly, hope took root, nurtured by honesty and a willingness to forgive. Occasionally, Leo would pause and think about all the years wasted, regretting the simplest joys he missed. First steps, birthday parties, and nights reading bedtime stories. Guilt gnawed at him, but the triplets reassured him that they had found joy and security with their mother and grandparents. Now, they had a chance to build something new and better. That was enough. Laura also wrestled with her regrets. She had made decisions out of fear and heartbreak, denying the triplets a relationship with their father. But seeing Leo's commitment and the children's blossoming happiness reminded her that life often granted second chances if one was willing to embrace them. Shortly after the Gala, rumor spread through philanthropic circles about the dramatic family reunion. Some tabloids caught wind, but Leo used his influence to shield the triplets from the frenzy. Over time, the gossip subsided, replaced by genuine respect for how he supported Laura's non-profit efforts. Wealthy donors, who had once only viewed him as a savvy investor, now witnessed a man whose philanthropic drive was tied to something more personal, helping children just as he had helped his own find their father. As for the Hawkins Foundation, their gala became legendary for reasons beyond its opulent setting. Evelyn Hawkins, sensing a remarkable story, used her network to quietly channel more resources to Sacramento future leaders, eventually turning it into a model program championed at other high-profile events. Laura found herself in the unexpected position of a community leader, hailed for her perseverance and the remarkable success of her children. One evening, the entire family convened at the Sacramento Community Arts Center to watch Leanne accept her award for artistic excellence. Cameras flashed and applause thundered. Standing on stage, Leanne recognized the unwavering support of her mother, siblings, and her father. Laura, seated beside Leo in the audience, held his hand in a gesture of unity. The moment dripped with emotion, crystallizing all they had fought for since that fateful night at the gala. And so, in a world often defined by shattered illusions and missed connections, a single evening at a charity gala became the catalyst for healing. It proved that family bonds, while fragile, can endure immeasurable trials when love, honesty, and forgiveness guide the way. No matter the glittering facade of wealth or the painful shadows of the past, sometimes all it takes is the spark of recognition and the will to rebuild what once seemed lost. In the end, what began as a glamorous night of charity transformed into a powerful story of redemption, reconnection, and hope. Leo Rutherford. The ambitious millionaire came face to face with a hidden legacy. His triplets, who proved that love cannot be measured in dollars or buried by years of silence. Laura Manning's strength and sacrifice illuminated a path to forgiveness, showing us that even the deepest heartbreak can evolve into a second chance for healing. Through countless conversations, awkward dinners, and heartwarming reunions, this broken family learned that every sunrise can bring an opportunity to rebuild. If this story touched your heart, let its message of family forgiveness and resilience resonate beyond this moment. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you more tales of hope and inspiration. Share this story with someone who needs reminding. Love can truly conquer all. Secrets shimmer in the summer heat as the city's wealthiest gather at the grandest hotel in Manhattan. Billionaire heir. Nicholas Harrington is about to marry socialite Dahlia Ashcroft in a ceremony so lavish it has paparazzi climbing every fence and fans lining the streets. The bride walks down an aisle of pristine white roses. Cameras flash, but suddenly all eyes shift to a commotion outside the gates. A pregnant woman collapses on the marble steps, clutching a ring that gleams brighter than the midday sun. Whispers and gasps ripple through the crowd. The ring on her finger threatens to unravel every vow about to be spoken. Manhattan gleamed under a flawless summer sky as the Harrington estate prepared for the wedding of the decade. Billionaire heir Nicholas Harrington was about to marry Dahlia Ashcroft, a glamorous socialite whose family name carried as much weight as her designer gown. Media drones buzzed overhead, and exclusive guests mingled among sculptures and imported orchids. Inside his suite, Nicholas adjusted his tie nerves prickling beneath his polished exterior. He confided in his best friend Marcus, uneasy about the day ahead. "It's not cold feet," he admitted, "but something feels off. Dahlia's been distant lately." Marcus dismissed it as wedding stress, but Nicholas couldn't shake the unease. Though their whirlwind romance had been full of elegance and allure, Dahlia had always kept parts of herself guarded, and whispers of her father's financial troubles still lingered. In another wing, Dahlia prepared in silence, haunted by a mysterious phone call from the night before. Don't say yes to a lifetime built on illusions. As the orchestra swelled and photographers jostled for the perfect shot, neither bride nor groom sensed that their perfect day was about to be upended by a secret outside the gates, one that would stop the wedding cold. Across town, in a more modest part of Manhattan, Olivia Martinez clutched a worn leather diary against her chest. She was several months pregnant, and anxiety flared in her dark eyes. She had spent the last of her savings on a taxi to get here. For weeks, she'd resisted the urge to step into Nicholas Harrington's orbit again, but there was no escaping destiny. She needed answers for her unborn child's future, if nothing else. Olivia had once been one of Harrington Enterprises' rising stars, a bright, diligent staffer in the marketing department. She had a gift for strategic thinking and discovered she could hold her own among the cutthroat corporate elite. Nicholas had recognized her talent, immediately championing her ideas, inviting her to high-level meetings. From after-work gatherings to early morning coffees, their professional rapport had turned personal in the blink of an eye. The affair was as intense as it was hidden. Nicholas, then recently out of a relationship, had found in Olivia a genuine connection that was free of the usual society constraints. Her lack of social pedigree didn't matter to him. At least that's what he had told her. Their days together were filled with passionate, stolen moments, laughter, and plans for the future. She'd fallen for him completely believing he felt the same. Then abruptly Nicholas had distanced himself. Work responsibilities overshadowed their personal life, and the demands from his mother Elizabeth only intensified. At first, Olivia thought the pressure simply made him withdraw for a while, but when he stopped returning her calls altogether, she felt her entire world crack. Desperate for an explanation, she tried to confront him, but Elizabeth Harrington intervened. Elizabeth curtly told her that Nicholas had moved on. Any illusions Olivia had about a lasting relationship needed to end. Humiliated and heartbroken, Olivia left Harrington Enterprises for good. She returned to her family in Queens, drowning in sorrow and confusion, until a month later, when the pregnancy test she took turned positive. She'd never summoned the courage to tell Nicholas. Her phone calls remained unanswered, and she had no desire to go through Elizabeth again. She resolved to raise the child on her own in the quiet of her family home. But as her baby bump grew, so did her fear. Her finances were tight and her father's health deteriorated. Knowing the child was also Nicholas's, she began to worry about a life overshadowed by regret, secrecy, and struggles. It was a scandal waiting to erupt. The Harrington heir had impregnated a woman from outside his high society circle. On top of that, he'd since become engaged to someone else, someone with a pedigreed name and fortune. That was how Olivia discovered Nicholas's upcoming wedding. She'd seen the headlines "Billion-Dollar Wedding of the Century" and Nicholas Harrington ties the knot with Dahlia Ashcroft. Glitzy photos had accompanied every article, fueling her heartbreak and sense of betrayal. But heartbreak gave way to resolve. Her child deserved better than a lifetime of questions about an absent father. She decided to confront Nicholas one last time. If he refused to take responsibility, at least she would have tried. So here she was, stepping out of the taxi before the grand Harrington estate. One hand clutched the tattered diary in which she'd written every memory of her moments with Nicholas. Something that might prove her story was real. The other hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby's gentle kick. Guests in designer attire were streaming through the mansion's gates, dazzled by the horticultural wonders and the top-tier security. Olivia could feel stares following her as she made her way up the steps. She stood out in her plain sundress and comfortable flats, sweat forming at her temples from the high afternoon sun and her mounting nerves. A security guard stepped forward, posture rigid. "Invitation." "Ma'am, I don't have one." Olivia stammered, anxiety lacing her words. "But I need to see Nicholas Harrington." The guard's expression was a practiced mixture of disapproval and pity. "I'm sorry, but you can't enter without an invitation." Olivia's pulse pounded. My name is Olivia Martinez. I used to work for Harrington Enterprises. I need to speak to Nicholas. It's an emergency." The guard gave her a dismissive once-over. "You and 100 others out here." She opened her mouth to argue, but the midday heat and her nerves were getting to her. Her vision blurred. Before she could stabilize herself, a wave of dizziness crashed over her. She stumbled, tried to reach for the guard's arm, and felt darkness closing in. The last thing she remembered was the swirl of a crisp tuxedo and worried gasps. When Olivia regained a moment of consciousness, she heard frantic whispers. People were calling for medics. Strangers hovered around her, some kneeling, others stepping back uncertainly. One woman exclaimed, "She's pregnant. Someone help her." Olivia tried to speak. Her gaze drifted to her left hand, where she wore a simple ring. A ring Nicholas had once given her, with the promise, "No matter what happens, wear this. And know I'm thinking of you." It shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The ring that had meant the world to her. She wanted to stand, to push past the guards and demand to see the groom, but her body wasn't cooperating. Then she drifted into darkness once more. In the distance, cameras started clicking. The spectacle of a pregnant woman fainting at the gates of the biggest wedding in the country was too tantalizing for any tabloid photographer to ignore. Whispers swirled. Who is she? Look at that ring. Could she be from his past? Some onlookers speculated it was a publicity stunt. Others rushed to help. But as the bride prepared to walk down the aisle and the official wedding music soared, a new disruptive energy filled the air. Fate was about to intervene in the ceremony with a secret no amount of wealth or status could bury. The wedding ceremony had begun in the estate's lush rose garden. Rows of satin-covered chairs and an aisle strewn with pale pink petals led to a grand arch made of intertwined white lilies. The officiant stood beneath it, looking both formal and nervous. The pressure of uniting such powerful families weighed heavily. The audience glimmered with New York's top-tier socialites, international business moguls, and paparazzi disguised as invited media. Murmurs rippled through the crowd about the day's earlier spectacle, but no one dared overshadow the bride's entrance. Nicholas tried to suppress the rush of anticipation thrumming through him. His mother, Elizabeth Harrington, sat in the front row, an immaculate figure in an elegant turquoise gown and matching hat. She caught Nicholas's gaze and smiled with that regal Harrington air, as if to say, "Everything is perfect today." On the bride's side, Dahlia's parents, Damien Ashcroft, and the famous socialite-turned-philanthropist Cassandra Ashcroft, positioned themselves proudly. Although rumors persisted about the Ashcrofts' financial troubles, Dahlia's family still presented a picture of timeless sophistication. The wedding planner signaled that the bride was about to make her entrance. The string quartet shifted into a delicate melody. All rose to their feet. Dahlia stepped into view at the far end of the aisle, radiant in her couture gown. She was a vision of grace. Each step measured, her eyes locked on Nicholas. Cameras snapped, capturing every angle of her slow, elegant progress. Nicholas felt his heart swell. Perhaps the tension he'd been harboring all morning was just premarital jitters. Soon he would be bound to Dahlia, forging a powerful alliance and hopefully a harmonious life. But halfway down the aisle, before she could reach the arch, the music abruptly cut off. Gasps rippled across the garden. The hush was so absolute, one could hear the rustle of Dahlia's gown. People craned their necks to see the cause of the interruption. At the edge of the garden, near the open gateway to the estate, a small crowd had gathered. Behind them, an ambulance's lights flashed, and paramedics rushed toward the commotion. Nicholas exchanged a confused glance with Marcus, who looked equally startled. Dahlia paused, a fleeting look of alarm in her eyes. Off in the distance, they heard the agitated chatter of guests. A pregnant woman had collapsed on the marble steps. She was wearing some kind of ring. She was calling Nicholas's name. A jolt of recognition prickled over Nicholas's skin. A pregnant woman, wearing a ring without warning. Images of Olivia Martinez, the brilliant marketing staffer, the woman who once meant everything, flashed through his mind. He felt a sudden pang of dread. Could it be her? But how could she be here, fainting at his wedding of all times? Dahlia glanced nervously from Nicholas to the crowd beyond. She saw uncertainty etched across his face. The officiant tried to regain control, clearing his throat and murmuring, "Please be seated, everyone." We'll resume in just a moment. Instinct propelled Nicholas toward the perimeter. He stepped off the dais, ignoring the murmurs of the guests. Dahlia called after him, her voice trembling with confusion and a flicker of panic. Yet he couldn't stop himself from investigating. Something drew him a mixture of concern and guilt that throbbed in his chest. As Nicholas approached the group, he caught sight of Olivia lying on a stretcher. Her face was pale strands of dark hair clinging to her damp forehead. When she saw him, her eyes fluttered open. She reached weakly for him, her voice scarcely above a whisper. "Nicholas," he froze in place, heart pounding. Memories collided, late nights in the office, secret dates, gentle smiles that once belonged only to them. In the same moment, he noticed the ring he had gifted her, glinting on her hand. He'd forgotten it, but she hadn't. Behind him, the assembled crowd strained for a glimpse, speculation already spiraling. Tabloid journalists clicked furiously on their cameras. On the dais, Dahlia lifted a trembling hand to her lips. She could see the shock on Nicholas's face, the tender way he crouched to speak to the mysterious woman. A wave of jealousy and fear surged inside her. She had no idea who this stranger was, but it was clear she was important enough to stop Nicholas in his tracks on his wedding day. Elizabeth Harrington, too, stood up, her posture as rigid as a marble statue. She recognized Olivia. She had orchestrated her quiet removal from Nicholas's life. Now that carefully constructed reality was crumbling before her very eyes. Elizabeth felt her breath grow shallow, the color draining from her cheeks. One of the paramedics turned to Nicholas. "Do you know this woman?" he asked. "She's dehydrated, exhausted, and probably overheated from standing in the sun." Nicholas swallowed hard. "Yes," he admitted. I know her." Olivia tried to speak, but her voice was lost to the swirl of chaos. The crowd around them grew, the atmosphere crackling with tension. Dahlia stood frozen at the other end of the aisle, uncertain whether to continue to the altar or retreat. The officiant exchanged panicked glances with the wedding coordinator, uncertain if the ceremony should halt or proceed. In that charged moment, the ring on Olivia's finger shone like a beacon, quietly telling a story that threatened to rewrite the script of Nicholas's perfect wedding. And in the hush that followed, every mask of decorum threatened to slip, revealing the tangled secrets lurking beneath Manhattan's gilded surface. "Stop the ceremony," Nicholas declared, in a voice steadier than he felt, though it was the last thing he ever expected to say on his wedding day. He couldn't stand idly by while Olivia was whisked away without understanding what was going on. The entire wedding party seemed frozen. Guests muttered among themselves, exchanging scandalized glances. A hush fell over the string quartet. Dahlia's face contorted with panic, her bouquet trembling in her hands. "What do you mean, stop the ceremony?" she finally whispered, voice breaking. "Nicholas, what is happening?" He looked back at her, eyes heavy with regret. "I need a moment. I'm sorry." Before Dahlia could protest, Nicholas rushed to accompany the paramedics who were carrying Olivia into the mansion's side entrance. Elizabeth Harrington marched after him, face stern, while Dahlia remained rooted in place, too shocked and bewildered to move. The paramedic set Olivia down in a cool private lounge inside the mansion. Her breathing had steadied, but worry etched her features. Nicholas knelt beside her, a tempest of questions in his gaze. Elizabeth stood at the doorway, her expression unreadable, occasionally glancing at her watch, as if to say, "Time is money, and this fiasco is costing us dearly." Olivia Nicholas murmured, unsure where to begin. "What are you doing here? What happened?" She took a shaky breath. The paramedics provided her with a glass of water, which she sipped gratefully. I needed to see you, she managed. It couldn't wait, as if realizing for the first time the presence of Elizabeth. Olivia's eyes flicked uncomfortably in her direction. Nicholas noticed this and motioned for his mother to step outside. Elizabeth hesitated, lips pursed, but Nicholas insisted. "Mom, please. I need to talk to her alone." With a stern huff, Elizabeth left, shutting the door behind her. Olivia seemed to relax just slightly. "I know this is a terrible time," she began, tears threatening to spill. "But I didn't know what else to do." "You wouldn't return my messages," and Nicholas frowned. "Messages? What messages? I never got any calls or texts from you." A mix of frustration and heartbreak flashed across Olivia's face. "I left them with your mother. I tried to call you on your personal phone, but it was disconnected. Later I was told you wanted nothing more to do with me. That was around the time I found out I was pregnant." Silence thundered between them. Nicholas's eyes widened, darting to her belly, as if only now registering the obvious. "You're pregnant?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm sorry to burst into your life like this, especially on your wedding day. But I'm out of options. I tried to support myself, but finances are tight, and I realized you have a right to know. Our baby deserves better than to be a secret." Nicholas's world spun. Memories resurfaced from the swirl of their stolen kisses to the hush of corporate hallways where they'd talk late into the night. How could he not have known guilt surged in him as he wondered how many of her calls and messages had been intercepted presumably by his mother? Elizabeth had always been fiercely protective, but this time she'd gone too far. Outside, footsteps approached the door. Marcus slipped in, shutting it quietly behind him. "Nick," he said, voice cautious. "What's going on?" "The guests are getting restless." Dahlia's distraught. Nicholas glanced at Marcus, then back at Olivia. "I just found out I might be a father." Marcus's eyes bulged. He'd always suspected Nicholas had a deeper connection with Olivia. He remembered office gossip before she left, but this was a twist he hadn't seen coming. "Nicholas," he whispered, "the wedding is on pause. You have 1,000 guests out there, including half the city's elite, waiting for you." "What are we going to do?" Nicholas buried his face in his hands. His mind spun the wedding Dahlia, the baby, Olivia's desperation, his mother's manipulations. He had half a thought to rage at Elizabeth for interfering in his life, but he focused on Olivia. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice shaky. "Is the baby okay?" She nodded, wiping tears. "The doctor says everything is fine. Just need rest." "I'm sorry, Nicholas, but I had no other choice." Marcus placed a hand on Nicholas's shoulder. "We need to decide what happens next, man. The press is already salivating over this. If we don't do something, the rumor mill will destroy your reputation. Dahlia's, Olivia's, everyone's." Just then, Elizabeth flung the door open, ignoring all pretenses of privacy. "Son, enough. The guests are waiting. This wedding must proceed. Whatever mess this woman has created." Nicholas cut her off, his voice cold. "You lied to me. You told Olivia I wanted nothing to do with her." "Didn't you?" Elizabeth bristled. "I did what was necessary. Olivia wasn't part of our world. There are expectations. You have your duties as a Harrington. Your wedding to Dahlia will solidify our alliances, maintain our status." Nicholas felt a hot rush of anger. "This isn't about alliances. It's my life." "You had no right to interfere." Olivia tried to sit up, guilt etched across her face. Nicholas, please don't fight with your mother over me. That's not why I came. I only wanted you to know about the baby and see if you cared. His gaze softened as he looked at her. Of course I care. I just need a moment to think. But there was no time. Outside whispers and speculation rose to a roar. The string quartet had stopped, and guests were milling around. Some were checking their phones, likely to see if the story was already hitting gossip websites. Dahlia's father, Damien Ashcroft, marched around in frustration, while Cassandra Ashcroft fanned her face with trembling fingers, scandalized. And Dahlia. She stared blankly at the arch tears brimming behind her carefully applied makeup, uncertain whether the day she'd been promised had been snatched away forever. Nicholas stepped outside the lounge into the hallway, where the wedding coordinator hovered anxiously. What should we do? The coordinator asked, eyes bulging. Should we tell the guests to take a break, or Nicholas exhaled shakily. Tell everyone the ceremony is delayed. Just give me time to figure this out. And as the wedding planner scurried off to appease the unsettled crowd, Nicholas returned to face Olivia, Marcus, and Elizabeth. Staring into Olivia's trembling eyes, he knew that his once simple storyline, a wedding uniting two wealthy families, was now overshadowed by the unstoppable truth of a life he had unknowingly set in motion. This day meant to seal a perfect union was unraveling into a tapestry of secrets, lies, and heartbreak, with the entire world watching. As the ceremony unraveled, Dahlia escaped to a secluded part of the garden, her wedding gown dragging through marble paths. Questions raced in her mind. Who was the pregnant woman? Why had Nicholas abandoned her at the altar to rush to her side? Her mother, Cassandra, and father Damien soon joined her. Cassandra urged calm, calling the situation a misunderstanding. Damien was more direct, reminding her of what was at stake, their family's fragile financial standing, and the strategic alliance the marriage would secure. But Dahlia wasn't thinking about status. She'd wanted love, not just legacy. She's pregnant, Dahlia whispered. He left me standing alone. Her parents insisted she continue. With the wedding. Marriage is compromise, Cassandra said, and Nicholas still loves you. But Dahlia wasn't convinced. The look in Nicholas's eyes had said something different. And worse, she recalled that warning call. Don't say yes to a lifetime built on illusions. With resolve, Dahlia stood. I need to speak to Nicholas. Alone. I need the truth before I make any choice. Upstairs in a quiet bedroom of the Harrington estate, away from the prying eyes of hundreds of guests, tension crackled like static in the air. Olivia was resting on a chaise lounge with a cool towel against her forehead, while Marcus stood by the window looking down at the commotion in the gardens. Nicholas paced the length of the room, fists clenching and unclenching. At last, Dahlia stepped in, still wearing her wedding gown. The airy folds of silk and lace contrasted sharply with her tense demeanor. She closed the door gently and found herself face to face with a scene she never could have imagined the love of her life. His ex-lover, who was pregnant with his child, and their mutual friend Marcus, who looked like he'd rather be on a deserted island than in this powder keg of a situation. For a moment, no one spoke. Dahlia, throat tight, finally cleared her voice. Nicholas, I need to talk to you. Her gaze slid to Olivia. Alone, if that's all right. Marcus glanced at Nicholas, who nodded. Marcus gently motioned for Olivia to follow him out. Olivia hesitated, placing a protective hand on her belly. She looked at Nicholas, worry etched across her features. Dahlia felt a pang of unexpected sympathy. The woman was clearly exhausted, vulnerable, and pregnant. Yet she's carrying the child of my fiancée, Dahlia reminded herself, steeling her resolve. Once Olivia and Marcus left the room, Dahlia turned to Nicholas. Her eyes were bright with tears, but her voice was steady. "Tell me everything." He swallowed hard. I met Olivia a little over a year ago. She worked in my marketing department. We started seeing each other. It was serious for a while, but then things got complicated. He paced, running a hand through his hair. My mother tried to push me into other social circles, insisted I needed a partner who could handle the responsibilities of being a Harrington. Olivia. She wasn't part of that world. There were so many outside pressures. I started pulling back. When Olivia tried to reach me, I didn't know. My mother apparently kept her messages from me. Then I met you at that charity gala, and our relationship took off. I had no idea Olivia was pregnant. I thought she'd moved on. Dahlia's chest tightened. So you didn't break things off with her properly. You just drifted away because of your mother's interference, and you never even knew you might have a child. Nicholas's voice caught. I'm guilty of not fighting harder for what I felt. I was weak. My mother's controlling nature, the demands of the business, and then meeting you, it all swept me along. But I never meant to abandon Olivia. Dahlia bit her lip, tears threatening to spill. She looked down at her own ring, the one Nicholas had given her when he proposed. It sparkled, an almost mocking reminder of their intended future. Do you love her? Nicholas flinched. He looked at Dahlia, a mix of remorse and affection in his gaze. I cared about her deeply, but so much time has passed. I've fallen in love with you, Dahlia. Our relationship might have started because of social expectations, but it became real for me. I love you. She studied his face, trying to discern the truth. In his eyes, she recognized genuine affection, but also shame and confusion, and the baby Nicholas's voice trembled. I can't walk away from my child. I won't. I have a responsibility. I have to be part of this child's life. Then what about us? Dahlia asked softly. Nicholas closed his eyes, shoulders slumping. I don't know. We can't just pretend this hasn't happened. Olivia, she's not trying to destroy our wedding. She was desperate. She needed to talk to me. And she's right. I deserve the chance to care for my child. A tear slipped down Dahlia's cheek. She pictured the tabloid headlines, the scandal that would erupt if Nicholas acknowledged fathering a child outside of marriage. And she thought of her parents, who pinned their fortunes on this union. Above all, she thought of her own heart. I don't want to marry a man whose heart is torn. If we stand at that altar, I want to be certain there are no secrets, no regrets. Can you promise me that Nicholas inhaled a shaky breath? I want to. I will. But I need to speak with Olivia first, figure out arrangements for the baby. This wedding, it can't happen while everything is in chaos. I need to do the right thing. Dahlia's hand shook as she removed the engagement ring from her finger. She handed it to Nicholas. I can't stand before the world with doubts. Handle your responsibilities, Nicholas. Sort out your feelings for Olivia. Then, if you want this marriage to happen, come back to me honestly. Until then, I'm taking a step back. Nicholas stared at the ring in his palm. Heartbreak etched across his features. He reached for Dahlia's hand, but she pulled away. Tears burned her eyes. She feared more than anything that this might be the end of what they had. But she couldn't stand in a wedding gown vowing eternal devotion under such a cloud of betrayal and uncertainty. They stood in anguished silence, neither knowing what came next. Outside, the sounds of restless guests, paparazzi, and concerned voices grew louder. Dahlia finally turned and left wedding gown swishing behind her. The moment she walked out, Nicholas felt an ache he couldn't describe. He'd never wanted to hurt her, yet here he stood with a ring in his hand and a child on the way. Everything he'd once taken for granted, shattered by the force of truth. Downstairs, the Harrington mansion buzzed with confusion and worry. People trickled into the grand foyer, searching for any sign of the bride or groom. Caterers stood by with trays of champagne, uncertain whether to serve them. Security guards whispered into earpieces, attempting to manage the chaos at the gate. Outside, the media was in a frenzy, capturing every moment of the unfolding scandal. Elizabeth Harrington swept through the crowd like an icy wind, her elegant gown trailing behind her. She offered perfunctory smiles, reassuring guests that the ceremony was merely delayed due to a minor medical emergency. Once out of earshot, however, her expression grew stormy. Her entire plan to marry Nicholas to Dahlia, uniting two powerful families, was falling apart right in front of her. She spotted her son descending the staircase, looking disheveled and lost. "Nicholas," she hissed, pulling him aside into the library, where they could speak privately. "What on earth are you doing? This wedding is crucial to our family's future. The Ashcrofts are ready to bolt if we don't proceed." Nicholas bristled, jaw tense. "Mother, do you even hear yourself? Dahlia and I can't just pretend nothing happened. Olivia is pregnant with my child. I have to do the right thing by her." Elizabeth's eyes flashed. "The right thing? The right thing is to honor your commitments. We've arranged this wedding for months, invested millions in forging an alliance with the Ashcrofts. They need our money. We need their influence, and your personal indiscretions are jeopardizing everything." Nicholas exhaled, struggling to keep his temper in check. "My personal indiscretion is an unborn child, Mother. A child I had no idea about, because someone made sure I never got Olivia's messages." Elizabeth lifted her chin, unrepentant. "I did what was necessary to protect you and this family. That woman was a distraction, a liability we couldn't afford. I never imagined she'd reappear like this, but it changes nothing. You will marry Dahlia. We will handle Olivia quietly, settle her financially, if needed, and move on." A flicker of shock and disgust crossed Nicholas's face. "You want me to abandon my child for business, for status?" She pressed her lips together in a tight line. "Nicholas, darling, you don't have to abandon the child. You can provide for it financially. But Dahlia Ashcroft is the wife you need, the mother of your legitimate heirs, the baby with Olivia. Let's be realistic. It's not part of the Harrington legacy. Her background, her lack of social standing, it's a ticking time bomb for scandal." Nicholas stared at his mother, feeling as though he was seeing her for the first time. He knew Elizabeth was fiercely protective that she lived and breathed the Harrington name. But her callous attitude toward an innocent child was more than he could stomach. "I'm not you," he said quietly, voice trembling with suppressed anger. "I won't throw money at my responsibilities and call it love. I won't marry Dahlia under false pretenses when my heart is torn. She deserves better than that." Elizabeth's facade cracked, a flash of genuine fear lighting her eyes. "If you break off this wedding, the Ashcrofts will withdraw all their support. Our synergy with them is vital to Harrington Enterprises' expansion in Europe. Investors will see your decision as instability. Our stock prices will plummet. Do you understand what's at stake?" He did understand. Decades of carefully cultivated reputation, billions of dollars in business deals, philanthropic efforts that hinged on social alliances. But he also understood something else, that if he let his mother bully him now, he would never escape the cycle of living by others' rules. "Yes, I understand," Nicholas replied, voice steady. "But I won't marry Dahlia until I figure things out with Olivia. And if Dahlia won't wait, so be it. I'll accept the consequences." Elizabeth's hand shook. "Nicholas, listen to me. You either fix this by marrying Dahlia as planned, or you risk everything your grandfather built. I will not watch you tear down the Harrington name over a mistake." Nicholas's eyes hardened. "This isn't a mistake. This is my child's life. If you can't support me in that, maybe it's time I take a step back from the family business." He turned to go, but Elizabeth grabbed his arm. "You'd walk away from Harrington Enterprises, from the heritage that's in your blood." He gently removed his mother's hand. "I'd walk away from anything if it meant doing what's right. I'm not a puppet, Mother. I'm your son." With that, he left the library. Elizabeth stood motionless, fury and fear warring in her expression. She had orchestrated so many details, paving the way for Dahlia's entrance, shutting Olivia out, and yet the entire plan was unraveling. She'd never anticipated Nicholas's sense of morality clashing with her ambition so forcefully. Her chest tightened with dread. The Harrington name had weathered countless storms, but this was different. This was a threat from within, and Elizabeth vowed not to let it topple her empire. In a quieter wing of the mansion, Olivia rested on a plush sofa, still recovering from her fainting spell. Marcus offered her a glass of water and some light snacks. Though she was appreciative, her mind raced with guilt and uncertainty. She hadn't planned to cause such a scene. She only wanted to speak with Nicholas privately. But fate had conspired to make her the center of attention on the biggest day of his life. "I'm so sorry," Olivia whispered, glancing at Marcus. "I never meant to ruin the wedding. This must seem like some melodramatic stunt, but I promise I was desperate to talk to him." Marcus shook his head, expression kind. "It's all right. If Nicholas had known you were pregnant, I'm sure he would have acted differently." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. "Do you really think so?" A part of me was terrified he'd reject us again, but I had to try. A noise in the corridor made them look up. Nicholas entered, looking fraught but resolute. Marcus excused himself, leaving them to speak privately. Olivia sat up straighter, one hand protectively over her belly. Nicholas drew a breath. "How are you feeling? Are you okay?" She nodded, tears threatening again. "I'm fine. Just overwhelmed. I should leave Nicholas. Your mother made it clear I'm not welcome. And Dahlia, this is her wedding day. I don't want to cause more drama." He lowered himself onto a nearby chair, searching her gaze. "I need to know everything. When did you find out you were pregnant? Why didn't you come to me sooner?" She exhaled. "I tried. I came to your office, but your mother intercepted me. She told me you'd moved on and didn't want to see me. I left messages, letters, none reached you, obviously. By the time it sank in that you'd abandoned me, I was already a month pregnant. I thought maybe I could raise this baby on my own. But my father lost his job. Medical bills started piling up. I kept reading about your engagement and wondered how you could be so callous. Eventually, I realized you had a right to know, even if you wanted nothing to do with us. I couldn't hide your child from you forever." His jaw clenched, anger flaring at his mother's deceit. "I never got your letters or messages. If I had known, I wouldn't have let you shoulder this alone." "I'm so sorry, Olivia." He hesitated, shame heavy in his voice. "I did move on, in a sense. I met Dahlia, and my mother was pressuring me to marry someone who fit our social circle. But I never intended to abandon you like this." She tried not to let the sting show on her face. Even now, hearing him say he moved on lanced her heart. But she saw guilt in his eyes, sincerity in his voice. "What happens now?" Nicholas swallowed. "I don't know. Dahlia has called off the wedding for now. She's not sure she can marry me until I figure out my responsibilities to you and the baby. My mother is furious. The Ashcrofts are in panic mode, and the media is having a field day." Olivia stared down at her hands, mind spinning. "I never wanted to destroy your life, Nicholas. I just wanted you to know about our child. If you want to be involved, I'd like that. If not, I'll respect your decision. But I can't keep living with this secret." He reached for her hand gently. "I do want to be involved. No matter what happens with Dahlia, you and this baby are my responsibility, my family. I'll provide for you, help you with any medical care, living expenses, whatever you need. But more than that, I want to be a father if you'll let me." Emotion swelled in Olivia's eyes. This was the Nicholas she'd fallen in love with, compassionate, strong, loyal. The question of Dahlia still loomed unspoken between them. Olivia didn't want to be the other woman or a perpetual source of scandal. She only wanted a stable environment for her child. "Nicholas," she whispered, "I'm scared. About everything." He squeezed her hand, tears glistening in his own eyes. "Me too. But we'll figure this out, and you won't have to face it alone." They sat there holding hands in a quiet, bittersweet moment, unaware that just outside, Elizabeth Harrington was gathering allies, and Dahlia Ashcroft was weighing her options. The wedding might be postponed, but the tension of the day was far from over. Each decision they made now would shape their futures and the future of the child whose presence had changed everything. As the day wore on, the wedding guests grew restless. Some milled about the garden, sipping champagne and gossiping. Others lingered by the catering tables, uncertain whether to stay or leave. A handful of unscrupulous reporters pretended to be part of the wait staff, eavesdropping on hushed conversations. The entire estate thrummed with a tense energy that threatened to explode at any moment. Dahlia reappeared in the garden, no longer wearing her veil, and with her makeup touched up, but still in her wedding gown. She ignored the stares and murmurs. She spotted Olivia stepping out onto the lawn, escorted by Nicholas. Their appearance together caused an immediate ripple of attention. Heart-pounding, Dahlia marched toward them. She had tried to calm herself, to analyze the situation rationally. But seeing the two of them side by side tightened her throat in a wave of heartbreak and, yes, jealousy. Yet she also felt a strange sense of compassion. Olivia looked tired and scared. Nicholas seemed torn, guilt in his eyes. Dahlia reminded herself, "She is carrying his child. Whatever anger I feel, it isn't her fault alone." A small tense circle formed as Dahlia approached. Marcus, who had been lingering at the edge, joined them for moral support. The hush around them was so profound that even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Nicholas glanced at Dahlia, heartbreak etched across his features. He started to speak, but Dahlia held up a hand. "I deserve some answers," Dahlia said quietly, her voice cracking despite her efforts. "Olivia, please tell me. What do you want from Nicholas?" Olivia swallowed, face pale. "I just want him to know about his child, to be part of its life. I'm not here to ruin your wedding or try to force him to be with me. I just can't raise this child alone. And it's his right, too." Tears glistened in Dahlia's eyes as she looked from Olivia to Nicholas. "Is that all?" she asked softly. She steeled herself, glancing at Olivia's ring. "What about that ring?" Olivia hesitated, then slipped the ring off her finger, cradling it in her palm. "He gave this to me a year ago. It wasn't an engagement ring, but it held a promise, one I clung to when I thought we had a future. I wore it today, because I wanted him to recognize me, to remember." Her voice broke on the last word. Dahlia's hands shook. She thought of the ring Nicholas had given her now in his pocket. 2 women, 2 rings, and 1 man caught in the middle. A real-life tragedy, she thought bitterly. "Nicholas," she said, at last, "I loved you. I still love you, but I can't marry you without clarity. Do you still love Olivia?" The question hung in the air like a thundercloud. Nicholas ran a trembling hand through his hair. "I'm not in love with Olivia, the way I once was. But I care about her, about the baby, because that's part of me now. Dahlia, you have to believe me when I say my heart has been with you. But I have to do right by this child. And that might mean supporting Olivia in ways that disrupt our perfect life." Dahlia swallowed hard. "I see." She took a moment glancing at Olivia, then back to Nicholas. Her voice wavered. "I admire you for wanting to do the right thing truly. But I'm not sure I can stand at the altar today, when so much has changed. If we're to have a future, it has to be one free of secrets, where we both respect each other's obligations. I need time to sort out my feelings." Olivia bowed her head. "I'm sorry, Dahlia. I never wanted to put you in this position." Before Dahlia could respond, Elizabeth Harrington appeared with a furious expression. "This wedding is still happening," she announced, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby guests. "We've invested too much to cancel now. Nicholas, Dahlia, you will proceed as planned. Olivia, you will be compensated handsomely, but this is not your day." The statement sent a shock wave through the small gathering. Dahlia's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and anger. Nicholas's jaw hardened. Olivia looked down, hurt and shame crossing her features. Marcus stepped forward, outraged. "Elizabeth, have you lost your mind?" "You can't just, I can and I will," Elizabeth snapped. "I have lawyers and advisors who will handle any scandal. The baby will be cared for. But Nicholas's duties as a Harrington come first." People nearby began murmuring in shock at Elizabeth's brazen commands. Dahlia closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. She whispered, "This is exactly what I was afraid of, being part of an illusion. I refuse to marry under such circumstances." A stunned silence followed. Nicholas took Dahlia's hand, but she gently pulled away. She looked at Olivia, giving her a faint nod of sympathy, and then turned to walk away. Elizabeth looked aghast, while Nicholas gazed after Dahlia, torn between chasing her and staying with Olivia. In that moment, the entire garden erupted into confusion. Guests realized something monumental had just happened. The wedding, once the most glamorous event of the year, was dissolving right before their eyes. Camera shutters clicked madly, capturing the meltdown of a dynasty. No one knew how this day would end, only that the illusions, so carefully woven, were unraveling at a terrifying pace. Late in the afternoon, as clouds threatened rain over the lavish Harrington estate, most of the wedding guests had dispersed. The wedding of the century had effectively been cancelled. A few close family friends lingered, hoping to support Nicholas or Dahlia, but the cheerful music and chatter were long gone. Inside the estate's private sitting room, Dahlia sat with her parents. Cassandra dabbed Dahlia's tear-streaked cheeks, while Damien fiddled with his phone. brow furrowed. "The damage is done," he said quietly, reading updates from the news. "But maybe there's still a chance to salvage this alliance. Nicholas might come to his senses." Dahlia said nothing. She felt as if she'd aged years in a single day, stripped of illusions about fairy tales and perfect romances. Yet a small, determined voice inside her reminded her that she deserved honesty and respect. If that meant losing Nicholas, so be it. On the other side of the mansion, Nicholas helped Olivia gather her things. She needed medical checkups and rest, not the pandemonium of a broken wedding. Marcus had arranged for a private car to take her to a nearby hotel away from the press. Nicholas insisted on accompanying her. He could no longer stand by and let others dictate his actions. Elizabeth Harrington stormed into the foyer, intercepting them before they could leave. "You are not walking out of here with her," she spat, voice laced with anger. Nicholas met his mother's glare with a resolute calm. "This is my child, and Olivia needs me. I don't care about the gossip or the fallout. I'll handle it." Elizabeth's eyes brimmed with frustrated tears. "You're throwing away everything we've built, Nicholas. Everything your father worked for. You're turning your back on your destiny." A flicker of sympathy passed through Nicholas. He knew his mother believed in her own twisted way that she was protecting him. But he also knew he couldn't let her sabotage his life anymore. "My destiny isn't just a business deal, Mother," he said gently. "It's also about being a decent human being." She let him pass, outraged, but powerless. Marcus followed them, stepping into the private car, with Olivia and Nicholas. The gates of the estate opened. Paparazzi flashed cameras capturing the surreal image of the groom, the pregnant ex-lover, and the best friend leaving the cancelled wedding together. The driver navigated through a sea of reporters, forging a path to Manhattan's quieter streets. Olivia swallowed nervously, tears drying on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "Your mother hates me now." Nicholas shook his head. "Let me worry about her. Right now, you and the baby come first. We'll figure out how to move forward. You won't be alone anymore." She rested her head against the seat, exhaustion overtaking her. Marcus pressed a supportive hand on Nicholas's shoulder. Neither man spoke, but there was a shared understanding that life as Nicholas knew it had changed irrevocably. When they arrived at the hotel, Nicholas escorted Olivia to her suite. Marcus took his leave, giving them privacy. Inside, Olivia sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. Nicholas sat beside her, leaning his elbows on his knees, face in his hands. "Thank you," Olivia said softly, "for not abandoning us." He lifted his head, expression earnest. "Never again. I'm not sure how I'll make it work. My mother's reaction, the press, Dahlia, but I won't run from my responsibilities." She laced her fingers with his, and for a brief moment, they remembered the affection they once shared. But they both knew too much had happened for them to simply pick up where they left off. The baby Dahlia, the entire fiasco. It all complicated their future. Meanwhile, back at the Harrington estate, Dahlia removed her wedding gown, letting it pool on the floor. The weight of heartbreak and relief mingled in her chest. It wasn't the fairy tale ending she'd dreamed of. But she realized that maybe it wasn't an ending at all, just the start of a different path. One where she refused to compromise her self-worth for illusions or deals. Some weeks later, when the tabloids had moved on to the next scandal, Nicholas reached out to Dahlia. He apologized again, offering any possibility of reconciliation. Dahlia agreed to meet him, but this time as two equals discussing their future rather than two pawns in a social game. She wanted to ensure that if they did continue, it would be on honest ground, and that meant acknowledging Olivia and the baby openly. And Olivia. She started receiving regular prenatal care funded by Nicholas. She focused on preparing for her child's arrival, finishing her own marketing freelance projects. She wasn't sure if a full romantic reconciliation with Nicholas was in the cards, but she cherished the knowledge that he would be a father to their child. Over quiet dinners and ultrasound appointments, they formed a fragile but hopeful bond, determined to give the baby the love it deserved. As for Elizabeth Harrington, she sulked in her penthouse, occasionally venting about the tragedy that had befallen her family name. Yet even she began to realize that scandal wasn't the end of the world. Over time, she might learn that love and family hold value beyond carefully engineered alliances. But that was a journey she had to take alone. Life moved on. The wedding day that turned into a spectacle had shaken them all to their cores, revealing secrets, testing loyalties, and forging unexpected alliances. Yet sometimes from the rubble of broken plans, a more genuine foundation emerges, one built on truth, compassion, and the determination to do what's right. Heartache can be the crucible that melts away life's illusions, forging a stronger sense of self and purpose. Nicholas, Dahlia, and Olivia each confronted realities that shattered their carefully crafted plans. In the aftermath, they learned that true connections require honesty and courage, even if it means standing up to powerful family expectations. While the billionaire's wedding never reached its storybook finish, a more authentic tale began, one of acknowledging past mistakes, embracing new life, and daring to hope for a future that's unburdened by deceit. If you were captivated by this emotional journey, complete with betrayals, high-stakes drama, and unexpected bonds, don't let the story end here. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more riveting tales that peel back the glamour and reveal the raw, heartfelt struggles that unite us all. Your support fuels each new chapter, reminding us that every ending can spark a bold new beginning.